Coming aboard ship, I'm the lowest rank there is, just out of boot camp. I'm a fireman apprentice, and I went into what they call the ice machines. And the ice machines is a group that takes care of all the refrigeration and such aboard the ship. At that time, the ships were not air conditioned. The captain's cabin, the admiral's cabin, CIC, the ready rooms for the pilots, the walk-in refrigerators and freezers, and a few other things on the ship. And all the drinking fountains, we call them scuttlebutts, but all the drinking fountains on the ship were water-cooled, so they could get cold water. And those all are our responsibility. And so the first thing I do is learn how to be a refrigeration mechanic. And the one job I had was one of the ready rooms. There was a little compartment right next to it, and there was a big compressor in there, refrigeration compressor, and that room was my responsibility to make it look clean and nice and polish the brass and that type of thing. And the chief petty officer I worked for, I think he took a liking to me or whatever, I don't know, but he was always pushing me. He made me learn the refrigeration cycle, and I had to draw it out for him, and he made me take some correspondence courses, and he signed me up to go to Great Lakes to machinist mate school. All these things in pushing me to be a better sailor and be able to do the job better so I could get I'd move up in rank. And one of my shipmates, the guy I worked for, he's a second-class machinist mate. In later life, he became my son's father-in-law. But I kept friends with him up through all the rest of his life. He passed away a couple of years ago. But you make friendships like that aboard ship that last a lifetime. Well, basically, being in refrigeration like I was, on the Navy you have a watch. There's always somebody on that watch. And the watch is usually about a 4-hour stint. And one of the things we had to do, we had to go to the admiral's cabin, the captain's cabin, all the ready rooms, and all the other places we had refrigerated and air-conditioned spaces. And our job was take a clipboard and mark down the temperature and whatever. So I had access to a lot of the ship, but that let me get on the hangar deck a lot, not much on the flight deck, but the hangar deck quite a bit. And every once in a while you'd bump into somebody and say, oh, look at that plane there, it's got bullet holes in the tail or whatever. But as far as what is actually happening over on land, nobody I worked with was associated with that. We just hear little rumors about we did this, or that somebody got shot down, or the plane, or whatever. But there was no real communication what was happening over there as far as first-hand knowledge. And the closest that came was at one time they were, I don't remember the name of the place, but the North Korean army was overrunning South Korea, and the Americans had to get out. And in the process of getting out, they had to go to the shores, and the Navy was coming in and giving them ground support and air support to get them off the land without getting killed. And that was the first time, in fact I've never heard of it since, that our 5-inch guns actually fired on shore. Now we're an aircraft carrier, and an aircraft carrier is out in the middle of the ocean with all these ships around it protecting it, yet we're firing 5-inch guns towards the land. And when they go off, they shake the whole ship. And then the other thing is, when an aircraft goes over and they have rockets under their wings, when you fire the rocket, there's a little lock on the front of the track the rocket sits in that opens up. They have no way of relocking that track, so the track is open. Now if the wire came off the back to ignite the rocket didn't fire. The electric wires hanging in the air. So now the plane comes in to land. When the plane lands on an aircraft carrier, it grabs that wire and it stopped in a few feet. Now our ship is not like these ships we have today with a canted deck. We had a straight deck carrier. And on the front of the ship are parked all the planes that just got back, or waiting to get repaired or launched the next time. That rocket goes off that track and shoots down the deck, and everybody crosses their fingers and hopes it doesn't hit anything. If it doesn't, 2 men have to pick it up and carry it to the side of the ship and throw it overboard. And when that happens, it explodes right at the waterline, and you feel that through the whole ship. So we knew a war was going on, but as far as really close contact, no. Okay, now the ship was on the East Coast. It's a West Coast, East Coast ship. It was in the West Coast for the Korean War. Now it has to get to the East Coast. It goes to the East Coast, goes through overhauls. We go to Cuba for a shakedown cruise, go to Halifax for shakedown. We made Mediterranean cruises. Now, the one thing I remember the Mediterranean that I think was interesting, we're in, I believe it was Naples, and the ship is so big it can't tie up at a dock, we anchor out. And all the big ships anchor out. And a storm comes up, big storm. And at that particular time, one of my jobs was the engineer in a motor launch. Now the motor launch is a large open boat with an engine down near the back, and the coxswain who steers the boat stands up and back and steers it. And he has a bell hanging down below. He can ring this bell. And the bell ringing tells me what to do as the engineer. It tells me one ring, go forward, 3 rings, go fast, and reverse, and that type of thing. So we have a boat crew. There's 3 of us, the boat crew, a deckhand, myself, and the coxswain. And the storm comes up, and the ships are dragging anchor. They're moving, all pointing into the wind, but they're all sliding. And our boats are tied up on, like, we had on the side of the ship like telephone poles or on a hinge. And you swing them out, and the boat has a rope that comes down, you tie it to the front of the boat, and you have a rope ladder that gets down to the boat. Now these boats, the rope is straight out, and the ladder is coming straight down here, and it's about 10 feet from the ladder to the boat. And we had to get our boats because one of the motor launches, we had motor launches were Chris Craft, we had I think 2 of them, and they were the officers' motorboats. That's how they got to shore. The motor launches for the listed men. So I was the first one. I went out on that boom, I climbed down that rope ladder, hanging onto the rope that was tied to the boat, and I got into our boat. I started the engine up and put it in gear and brought the boat up underneath the ladder. The rest of our boat crew came down and got in our boat. We untied it, we were onto the gangway, picked up all the other boat crews and took them to their boats. And we spent that night on the Fleet Landing freezing our butt off because it was wet and cold. And that to me was the exciting thing I did in the Navy. And I got what they call a meritorious captain mast for that. The captain mast is usually when you're in trouble, but this was called a meritorious captain mast. It was basically they got up and said, "Attaboy," you know, and enjoyed it. That's my experience is basically in the Navy and the things I did.